Hello there, Julianne Stevenson from Sterling Credentials with part 3 of 3, Unlocking the Mystery of the SMC. If you haven't watched any of the previous videos, that's okay. What my goal here is to help you get the absolute most SMC credits out of your live patient shifts as you possibly can. So we're going to be paying specific attention to the clinical field and capstone or internship reports. If you're interested in simulation reports, kick back over to part 2. Part 2 covers that. And when you lock a patient, Sterling is going to go ahead and calculate your SMC credits. And where they're going to go are going to include the age of the patient, so table 1, and the condition of the patient, table 2. And in both cases, the first rule always of Sterling is you always must do a primary and a secondary assessment. That's the first thing that you always have to do on all patients to get any credit in these two tables. And if you look here, the COA is pretty clear about that. Primary and secondary assessment. Not only is it required for COA and accreditation, but it's best practice. You know, the best gift you can give your patient is a solid assessment. Then your skills will go into table 3. And when you get to field and capstone, those will go into table 4. Obviously, clinical won't go there because remember, clinical is brick and mortar. Field is your initial ambulance runs, and capstone is your final end of the run, proving you're ready to be alone set of field rotations, usually with the same preceptor for every shift. Okay, so first we're going to look at table 1. We're going to look at ages. So what do you do to get credit for seeing or having contact with the certain patient ages? Remember, these are, we're focused today really on the clinical field and capstone internship. However, in many cases, the simulations also apply here in table 1. Okay, so what do you have to do? In any report type that you do, you must give, obviously, the patient of the correct age for the credit, so pediatric, adult, or geriatric. And then a primary and a secondary assessment. Again, I'm going to refer you back to the top of column 1 where it very clearly says primary and secondary assessment. Okay, that's it. That's simple. Now, column 2 in both the first 2 tables are a little bit tricky because they're meant to demonstrate that you're ready to be alone. You're ready to be independent. So, actually, I want you to look first at the field and capstone shifts. These are your ambulance shifts. And so what are we looking for there? Well, at a minimum, see up here, it says patient assessment. What does that include? A primary and a secondary. Okay, so you got to document a primary and a secondary. And then the management plan. Now, if you are in the lead position on the ambulance, then you are actually demonstrating that you're ready to do the job. And so instead of having to write a quote-unquote management plan, we're going to rely on seeing the actual interventions that you did to show us your management plan because you're just going to do it and then document it. However, 15 pediatrics on an ambulance might be a little challenging. And so after you've completed column 1 and you're now in clinic and you've already got, so clinic, remember, is brick and mortar is clinic, and you've already got all your column 1 experiences, then what you can do is you can go ahead and start adding a management plan to show your faculty how you're thinking. And the management plan skill, it's only present when you're doing a clinical type report. And it says at the top, if this were your patient and you got to make the decisions, what would you do? So you can show your faculty what you're thinking about. As I said, as soon as you lock your patient, you will get your credits. However, your faculty has every right and ability to reverse those credits. So be sure that your documentation is sufficient for the patient type that you have. Now, these over here. These are all your peds, and they just want to see that you got your different age groups, your neonate, your infant, blah, 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 blah. So your sum of whatever you got over here plus whatever you got over here should equal the sum of all these, because what we do is we take every single experience that credit over here and we show them over here. That's all that is. And again, it's all your reports. Table 2 works very much the same way. A minor exception, which is the very first table, is SIMS only. Okay, and these are your required SIMS. So you should be doing these regardless. Again, in case you didn't watch part 2, if you're a member in a simulation, write a report just like you were a student on an ambulance so that you can get credit for that patient type in the sim. Column 1 works exactly like column 1 from before. You got to have the correct or indicated differential diagnosis and a primary and a secondary. Now, one of the interesting things about this table, the COE has encouraged and blessed the act of double dipping. And so Starling allows up to 4 diagnoses in your patient information. So use all that apply. Again, your faculty can determine you need to reverse that or you need to change it, whatever. That can be done, but do all that apply. And then our column 2, again, works exactly the same way. We'll start with ambulance shifts, your field and capstone, the appropriate differential diagnosis, the team lead, a primary and a secondary, and all the interventions that you did. We'll show that you did an assessment and you did a management plan, right? Because that's the, interventions. In clinic, differential diagnosis, primary and secondary, and then that form that we made up called management plan. It's a very stripped down, quick form just to show how you're thinking and demonstrate that you were in fact ready to manage that patient. Okay, table 4. Table 4 is ambulance only. And so for the first column, see it says field experience. So these are only going to come out of your field rotations. Technically, that's what it's supposed to be. However, what I did was because column 2, yeah, I have to tell this now. So, okay, why do I have capstone included as a report type that would go here? Well, this part of the table is for team leads only. And so what do I do if you do a capstone that you turn out to be a team member on because it was a gnarly call or whatever? Well, so what? You just don't get credit for that? No, in Sterling, you get credit over here in the column 1. All right, because column 2 is non-negotiable. This is the absolute bare bones minimum. Not, oh, woohoo, this is less than average if you ask me. 20 runs as a team lead, that ain't a lot to go out and be by yourself and take care of some, sick 3-year-old. But anyway, 20 team leads go here. If you do anything else in capstone, I'm going to put them over there in that first column for you. Again, this is very similar to the column 1 and column 2s we just looked at, which is column 1 is your initial exposures and column 2 is your I'm ready to be alone exposures. So again, you've got to be a team lead. You've also got to give us a primary and a secondary and show us all the interventions that you did. You can't just create a report with a patient and say team lead on it. That's not good enough. You got to actually back it up with your documentation. And again, only the capstone report type counts here. Oh, this is the cheat card for column 2. Since column 2 is a little bit tricky in that you have to document enough stuff to prove that you're ready to be alone, you can screenshot this right now if you want to, or you can download a copy from our help videos page. I encourage you to visit our help videos page often because it has everything you need. But here, let's review. If you're on the ambulance, then to get column 2 credit, what do you have to do to get column 1? Just a primary and a secondary. That's the rule all the time, primary and secondary. What do you got to do to get column 2? I'm ready to be alone. I'm ready to be independent. You got to be a team lead, plus the primary and the secondary and all the interventions so we can see your management plan. Oh, an aside. See these little stars? You have to do independent skills. Remember, on your skills, you can be an observer, you can be training, or you can be independent. In these 2 skills, at least, you got to be independent. If you end up having to cut somebody's throat and they help you with that, that's okay. That's all right. But we got to see you independent on your primary and secondary. In clinical, if you're trying to get column 2 credit, wait until you've got all your column 1 credits. But if you have them, then add the management plan to the primary and the secondary to get your column 2 credits in the clinical brick and mortar locations. In review, I am always here to help you. This is the part of the mission that I have chosen to support. I have become, by critical need, the documentation specialist. That way you and your faculty can focus on important stuff like, becoming a cream of the crop clinician. So get out there and do it. Be safe. And I'll be standing by if you need any help.